Why everyone is obsessed with carburetor. Today let's try to demystify this constant depression carburetor Zenith-Stromberg.
Patrick's Garage.
Grab your snack, welcome back. First time I've seen this carburetor Zenith-Stromberg, I was so impressed how this carburetor works. Harry's piston inside, how this was arranged that piston moves up, piston lifts with his needle, Harry's taped needle, gasoline goes spread in the venturi. So I was really impressed how this simple device can works without any electronic, only with vacuum. Later, yes, I was interested in these carburetors, what this ventilation for the chamber, flow chamber. Here is the hole goes here. And yes, numero uno, if it works perfectly fine, not even touch, leave it alone. If it works perfectly fine, this carburetor, you're not gonna to disassemble. Why you want to tear this carburetor? That if you have any suspicions that something go wrong, you want to reading books about this beautiful carburetor, and you know that Harry's weakest point, membrane right here, rubber membrane. So vacuum, vacuum goes from the intake manifold. So, and inside this piston, turns out here, two holes, two vacuum goes to this piston. Here is a membrane. Vacuum, here is piston lifts up with vacuum. You open the throttle shaft. The open vacuum goes, and here is two holes on this piston. So vacuum goes here, and piston lifts up. So this measuring needle, tapered measuring needle, but no. This is a really complex shape, not just tapered needle, There is a lot of measurements you can do along of these needle, and they will be differs from different models, different weights of these pistons, different strength of this return spring, which when piston returns in back into its position. Here is not forget about oil which you want to add sometimes. Here is should be transmission oil. This really have matter when you accelerate, so you don't want that your piston jumps immediately to the up, because here is like absorber, here is oil, transmission oil. And this is carburetor, a really interesting thing because it works only with mechanically. Yes, a lot of carburetors was without any electronic crap. A lot of tubes go to the carburetor. This is was really horrible, and they was really complex. Latest carburetor, you can't find any complex crap like a carburetor of their latest time. Probably injector. Yes, injector more simple than latest carburetor, but this is carburetor from 70s. This is carburetor from 70s. You see, here is temperature compensator. They afraid about pollution, so they decided to install this temperature compensator, which allows Harris hole for temperature compensator allows to go the additional air not through their venturi, because they want to not to saving additional gasoline, but they think that this is will be not so a lot of pollutions goes from the tailpipe of this temperature compensator. But all in all, this is the old Stromberg from 60s Harris. You know, there is no adjustable main jet, probably. And you know that earlier all 140 series with B20 engines was without adjustable main jet, without adjustable metering needle, you know, so you can using only special tools like in a lot of models since 70s. Yes, later they decided to install adjustable metering needle, but thing is, I was impressed how works this really simple device. And before you learning any books, you can't understand how this thing works and which adjustings you can use for this carburetor. You know, Harris cam for cold start device. You know, you open this holes inside with different inside diameters, so you can add additional gasoline when you want to start a mm, cold car. Here is, you know, and simultaneously, you know, opened this throttle uh, by these levers. This works. And yes, sometimes it can be so happen that we under obligation to demystify this working process of this carburetor, and we want to learn how this carburetor works. So I can't teach you completely about this carburetor. If you're interested, you want to read books about this carburetor. A lot of literature you can find on eBay. You know, I bought books on eBay about this carburetor. You can find them. They're not so expensive. Yes, if you want to demystify and real cause, you have to open these screws, you know, this lid. Here is membrane. You want to replace this membrane all the time when you disassembling this carburetor. But what can be wrong in latest models? This shaft can be wrong, you know, this was more longer shaft, here is bushings, and they want to using these seals, even rubber seals, here is. In latest models you can find which was no, there is no this rubber seals like this. There was no in the 60s. Yes, this is was improvement. Yes, I'm agree. Harris also in latest models was made of steel, this shaft, because this shaft can be worn and more often shaft will be worn before bushings will be worn. So you can replace shaft couple times and only after you want to replace these bushings. But I'm not advising to replace bushings inside the carburetor because they was installed from the factory. This carburetor with steel bushings inside. This aluminum but bushings made out of steel, and you can't replace them. Yes, you can make. Probably you want to produce the throttle shaft with bigger diameter, so you if the diameter of bushings increases. Yes, if you want, you can remove the air filter. You want to replace air filter if it clogged, and you see this picture, nothing wrong. If couple minutes you can start your engine without air filter if it's not in a dusty area, you know, and you can see how piston lifts up when you step on the gas, you know. Areas like you open this throttle shaft moves, and you see butterfly open our venturi, so you know vacuum from the piston, from the cylinders, vacuum goes through the manifold, and by vacuum this carburetor works. All this genius system works with vacuum. So this carburetor called, you know, constant depression carburetor, what means 175? What that means? That means 1 75. This is diameter of venturi of this carburetor. They differs. They can be 150 with little bit smaller diameter. And they have different main jets. Yes. And in first time when I seen this carburetor, this was unexplainable for me how this system works, without any electronics. The system works perfectly fine and things which you can replace a lot of things. Now they are really old carburetors, Harris. Mark how you want to put this lid into its place. So even today, a lot of guys obsessed with this carburetor. How this carburetor works, who knows? Before you're reading, you're not familiar with these carburetors. And a lot of mechanics avoid. They just avoid to working with this carburetor because they're working with injector system. Injector system more easy to work. What can be wrong with injectors? You can put them to the stand and you see how they spread the fuel correctly or not correctly. All will be obvious. But here is you can hear how it works. You see vibration of engine, how works with carburetor. Even old guys don't want if they have no experience. They don't want to messing with this carburetor. So you want to learn how this carburetor works. You want to learn how to adjust this carburetor, how to disassemble this carburetor. So nothing difficult is when you will be familiar with this carburetor. So today we try to demystify a little bit. Yes, and this will be not so funny joke when clowns in explaining you about how they making their tricks, but will be better to be more familiar with this carburetor. Yes, and you remember about first impression of this carburetor. This leads you more closer to be familiar with this interesting device. So if you're unable to stop thinking about this carburetor, how this carburetor works, more better to disassemble this carburetor, to find books how to rebuild this carburetor.
Now, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. Click the subscribe button and notifications bell so that way you can be notified as soon as I upload new videos about car repairing.